morning, boys and girls. It's another Sunday morning and another episode of Sunday School coming up for you this morning. We've got another part of the Jesus story. We're actually going back a little bit in time with this one. We're going back to Mark chapter 4 before we jump back forward again in the story. We'll come to why that is in just a little bit. Now remember, one of the things that you can do each and every week over this term is you can send through your questions to me to get answered. If you're sitting on some burning questions about Jesus, about God, about anything like that, and you want them answered, now is your chance to send them through. So remember, there's two ways. One, you can send us a message on our Facebook page, or two, you can send us an email at the email address just below here, vipnetcbprayers@gmail.com. We have had a question come in this week, and it kind of relates to the stories we've seen over the last 2 weeks. The sum of the question is, are the people that we see in Mark chapter 5 and Mark chapter 3, when Jesus is dealing with these demon-possessed people, are they just people who are mentally ill, and it's just being described in a different way for the time? And then does that have any impact on people who have some kind of mental illness today? Are they either really demon-possessed, or are they misdiagnosed as something else? Well, I think there's a bit of a big difference going on here. In Mark chapter 9, we jump forward a fair bit, and we see a case where Jesus heals a boy who has had a demon in him for a very long time. Now we know that he's dealing with a demon here, not just a mental illness, by the way that all the people in the situation identified the problem. Firstly, we have in Mark chapter 9, the scribes and the Pharisees and the disciples who are arguing about the problem all identify this thing as a spirit. Jesus also identifies this thing as a spirit. When Jesus asks the dad, how long has this been going on? He describes the problem and identifies it as a spirit. And in the end, when Jesus has cast it out, the disciples ask about this spirit and how come they couldn't do it. 4 times in this passage, this idea of a spirit or an unclean spirit is mentioned. It seems pretty clear then that Jesus isn't dealing with someone with a mental illness, but rather he is dealing specifically with the problem of a demon that has possessed a child. The same then goes for when we see the demoniac in Mark chapter 5, and any other instance where someone is specifically said that they have a demon in them and Jesus cast that out. I think Jesus knows what he's doing and what he's talking about when he identifies it as that thing. So no, the people in the Bible who are recorded as having demons are not people just with mental illnesses that was misdiagnosed or thought of in a different way. It's specifically talking about a thing that they had going on, a demon inside them. Now, what does this mean going forward? What does this mean for people today who do suffer with mental illnesses, whether it be anxiety or depression or anything else? Well, I think the same thing would go for them as it would for any kind of illness. We know that Jesus and God has the ability to heal anyone of anything. And sometimes it's great that he chooses to, but sometimes he doesn't. And so what hope do we have in those cases? Well, I think there's 2 big hopes there. One, the scope of medical attention, that means going to the hospital and getting a doctor to help you out, is not outside the realm of Christianity. Now, once again, 2 bigger words. It's not beyond the Christian person, the person who believes in God and Jesus, to go to a doctor. That's a-okay. That is a good thing to do. In fact, Paul in the Bible, when he speaks to his friend Timothy, who has a stomach problem, he prescribes a kind of medicine to him to help him out with that. The Bible is not against people seeing medical attention. It's not against people going to the doctor with any sort of problem, and that includes medical problems of a mental sort. We also know that there will be a day when God will fix all the problems. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be while we're alive here on this earth. But in Revelation chapter 21, God does promise there will be a final solution. He says in the end that there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and Jesus will wipe away every tear from everyone's eye and get rid of every problem, and he will make all things new. No matter what our problems are in this life, Jesus is going to fix it. He's going to bring an ultimate justice and an end to everything that is going on now, and he's going to make it great and better than ever before for eternity when he returns. And that is something that we can really look forward to. If you are struggling with these issues, then I would urge you to contact someone like your pastor or something like that, and they can help you with that. If it's kids, talk to their mums and dads or someone you trust, and let's work on this thing together. And of course, on any and every issue, we can always pray to God. But let's switch lanes at the moment. Let's go forward now to what's going on in today's episode. We're going to Mark chapter 4, and we're looking at Jesus and his disciples getting into a big, wet problem. Let's find out what that is. Let's have a look at today's story.
That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was, in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him."
Okay, wow, what an ending. The storm was raging, everything was going crazy, but Jesus has calmed the storm. And surprisingly, the disciples who were really scared when the storm was going on are even more scared when the storm has stopped. What's going on? Well, you're going to have to do a little bit of work on that yourself. You've probably got by now the email with the Sunday school lesson in it. So work through that and see if you can figure it out. I'll give you some clues, and there are some bits in the lesson there. The big thing that Jesus has done here in calming the storm, we do see similar things happen in the past in the Old Testament. Big things happening with water. What might those disciples know about those things, see what Jesus does, and put a big connection together? That's your job to try and figure out. All right, the songs are also in the description down below, so make sure you go and do those. And apart from that, I will see you all next week. Bye.